Okay, here we go. Okay, so quick note on vibes. I do this at the beginning of every webinar, or I did the last two times. I don't want this to feel like a webinar where I'm just talking at you. Feel free to use the chat to chat with each other or to ask me questions. They can be related to what I'm talking about or completely random about Arcol. I'm happy to answer whatever. I will give, before I get into those three things I just mentioned, I'll give a kind of an overview of Arcol. So there might be questions that come out of that. Okay, a little bit about myself. So I lead product at Arcol. I've been here since the very beginning. I am the one Canadian on the team. I had a life in architecture before, so I worked mainly on multifamily hospitality, but I've now been in tech longer than architecture, which feels weird. But I am familiar with the tools. I did everything from um, early conceptual design through to being on the site and doing construction admin. This is my third startup, so I'm also not new to the game of 0 to 1 and creating things from scratch. Now, just to give a sense of the current workflow that we see and what Arcol is built to address, you can see there's a fairly complicated web of tools that people use today for their feasibility and conceptual workflow. And so we've seen everything from AutoCAD blocks tied to Excel to using thick floors in Revit to give to fake massing, to doing things 100% in Bluebeam and basically having colored blocks that you drag around to kind of create a floor plan. Of course, the issue with all of these things that I just described is none of those are actually purpose-built for feasibility. And so there's always hacks and workarounds and things involved, and a lot of data loss as you transfer from one tool to the next throughout the phases of your project. So Arcol is built to make feasibility faster. That's what I'm going to show you just the kind of high level recap of before I jump into the more specific features I mentioned. So you can get a sense here of right off the bat, we are a browser-based 3D modeling tool there where you can really quickly do massing and get metrics off of the mass while you're creating your feasibility design. So a lot of really nice built-in things like design options, all those metrics I mentioned, documentation. That's one thing that sets us apart from other tools. And I'm going to kind of show you a little bit about that today as well. And so today I mentioned we will get into sheet set templates or one-click documentation, automatic parking, and blocks. But like I say, before that, just to give you kind of a 10,000 foot view of Arcol if you haven't seen it before, here's Arcol. And so obviously I'm jumping to a full completed project, but you've got here, modeling wise is very similar to SketchUp. So if you're familiar with SketchUp, you would like the way that Arcol works as well, but with all the data that you don't get in tools like Rhino or SketchUp or other modeling tools. So you can see out of this multi-building design I've got going on, I'm showing a site envelope that I've added in here. So I just have one setback, but Arcol, you can easily import your site. You get all your site context. You get your map underlay with your terrain. You can start creating your site envelope like I've got here. While you're creating those buildings, you're going to be getting all your square footages, automatic unit counts, all that stuff that you want to get really quickly while you're designing for feasibility because you're likely not getting paid or your fees are very low at that stage because you're trying to win the work. So that's what we're focused on. Design options also really easy. So I don't have a complicated option set up, but you can see it's built directly in. So there's no tags or layers or any of that thing that you need to kind of hack and work towards design options. It's a native component of Arcol, and the metrics are per option as well. Just to give you a sense of the flexibility of Arcol, this is a mixed use project. So I've got some multifamily and some office and some retail with parking. All of the functions and area types that you can assign to Arcol to get all these metrics, they're all fully customizable and configurable. So let's go back to that in a second. So I've got, a healthcare example. This is a real project that I remade in Arcol, and you get a sense here of for a healthcare project, you can break down at a high level different types of areas and then get specific unit counts from those as well. And it works for, say, education as another example. So you can get an idea of total classroom square footage, but then actually break it down into specific types of classrooms, square footages, and counts. So it's whatever you want it to be. This is not strictly a multifamily tool. It's whatever you want to use it for. You can also work at a high level of fidelity, kind of what you might do in Excel today. That's what this project is showing. So I basically have these masses that are all assigned residential, and I'm getting these unit counts automatically based off of a unit mix that I've set up here with different unit types that each have a unit size and then a parking requirement. And so lots of firms we talked to today, they do all of this stuff in Excel, and then it's disjointed from the model that they're working on. And this just does it all connected. So you can see here, for example, 516 units, 41 three bedrooms. If I start adjusting this mix and let's say make this, I don't know, let's bump it up by 10% and bump these down by 10%. All these unit counts now, I've got 91 three bedrooms. So that all, again, is connected to your model and live updating. You can also work at a lower level of fidelity, kind of more nitty gritty, and that's the project I skipped over earlier. So you can certainly come in here after you've got those kind of high level rough numbers, and you can start dividing up your masses into specific areas. And so it's really as easy as dividing up your space, selecting the space, and saying this should be a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom or whatever. You get your corridors, you get your core, all that kind of stuff. And at that point, now these counts in your sidebar are, of course, going to be a lot more accurate. So this unit count is now based off of the actual floor plates that I've created here. And that too is live updating. So if I just remove that shell for a second, if you see the sidebar here, it's all live updating as I go. So there's no refreshing. Everything's always connected in your model all at the same time. So you don't have to worry about coordination issues. You don't have to worry about your Excel changed. And so now you need to update your model to match. It's all done for you. So that's the high level kind of overview. Like I say, happy to answer questions about that. I'll get into the work in progress stuff that we are working on right now. And the first thing being documentation, which I didn't mention. There's a bunch of documentation stuff we already had done previously. Actually, the last webinar went deeper on that. So you can find that. We posted a link on our LinkedIn page, and it's on our YouTube channel as well if you want to check that out, the recording of it. But specifically one-click documentation. So just to give you a sense, I've laid out sheets in Arcol. This is what we call boards. Boards are these giant infinite canvas whiteboard spaces. It's Arcol's documentation space. Similar to any other whiteboarding tool you've used, except that you can also add sheets and views and all this stuff that I'm going to show you. So I've already gone in here previously, and I'll show you afterwards how I got this, but I've got a sheet, I've got some views on it, and I actually have those metrics that I was just showing you set up in here as well as live updating metrics. And so again, you may today have your process where you take screenshots and you manually input text and you put it all in an InDesign doc. The problem, of course, is if your Excel changes, then you have to update your model. And if your model changes, you have to update that. And then you have to update the screenshots. You have to update the manually inputted text in InDesign. Tons of coordination. This is all done for you. Just to give you a quick sense of what that looks like before I go into the one-click part. So you've got your views here. Pay attention to, say, this 101 residential studio count. If I go back into my view and I add a bunch of floors here, you can see now I've got 146 units and all my views have been updated for me. So what would take you, I don't know how long previously, maybe a half hour to update everything on a small project has been done automatically for you. The one-click part of it comes in where I have these sheets set up. I have this sheet set that I've created. I can templatize this. And so I've already done that, but you can see here, if I have a sheet set that I've made in one click, it's going to bring in everything. And in this case, I'll show you how it transfers to other projects, but all it's doing is saying, okay, well, I know there's a view on this sheet that's pulling from a view called 3D. So I'm going to map that together. And I know that there's a field here that's mapped to a 3D view and it's pulling site area as a metric. So I'm going to map that across. It's just doing that as a template. That's the simplest explanation of it. The beauty of these is that you can publish them out so that everybody in your organization has access to it. So if you have a typical, something like this where you've got a typical title page with some metrics on it, a couple standard views, and you have basic title block with your standard views. Of course, you can add on to this at any point after you've brought in the template. So it doesn't have to exactly match. If I want some sort of an elevation, I'd have to fix my view, but it's expandable within every project. But it gives you a quick starting point for that one-click documentation. So for example, if we come back into here, go to the board here, I'm in our dev environment, so forgive anything that doesn't quite go. Let's get rid of all these sheets. So I'm in another project, because I have that published sheet set available to me, I click it and you can see in one view, it's most of the way to what I need. So again, it's done the work of mapping the things it already knows. So I have a 3D view, so it can map that. I have a top view, so it can map that. I've got all these fields in this project, so it can map those. The things it doesn't have, it puts in placeholders. So I think I had like an option 2 in that template. There's no view set up, so I could create a new view in that case, or I can just select one that I have already. So maybe I want my typical floor plan on this view, something like that. So you can see how quick and easy it is. It really is one-click documentation once you have the templates set up. It's however you want to set them up. I showed you a whole sheet set as a template, but you can do also individual sheets as a template. So for example, let's say just this one sheet I want as a typical title block. I now have just that sheet as a template. So I can come in here, bring it in. Again, if I want everybody to have it, I can publish it. I can come back here. I think I'll have to refresh to be able to see it. But at that point, when I go to place a sheet in this project, I now have it available to me. I can bring in my title block and then again, just pick the view that I want to go there and I'm done. So that's one-click documentation. In terms of where we're going with it, I mean, the ideal is that from here, as you're creating, say, well, we already do that. When you create floor plans within a building, we automatically create a view for it. We want to continue to just automate this further. So having an intuitive sense of what goes into a sheet set to save you that kind of thinking, and being able to, in one click, drop in a sheet set and then maybe have it actually create the output sheet set, as a PDF or as a digital sheet set link or something, all in one step. That's where we're going with that side of it. Okay, so that's sheet set templates. Automatic parking. Well, I guess, sorry, one more note on sheets of templates. We would love to get everybody's thoughts on these things. Documentation gets me really excited because of the amount of time that I spend updating InDesign, and many people we've spoken to get really excited about it as well. If there's bits that you would like to see and directions you'd like it to go, I mean, please let us know. We want all and any feedback. And I'll tell you at the end how you can reach out to us. Okay, automatic parking. So there's no reason why, especially at the feasibility stage, you should be manually laying out parking lots just to get some rough counts based off of your massing, et cetera. And so we have been working towards that. It's like I say, it's in progress, but so I've got a site here in Chicago on the river. I can come in here. I've already got my site set up with some setbacks. So if I open this up, say in the split view, let's say I want to work on a podium level that is parking, and I'll show you. We can split it up so it's not all parking, but say I've got a podium that I'm working with, and I think I didn't quite snap there, so let's match that over a little bit. There we go. Snap and snap. Great. And it looks like it's in the topography a little bit, so I could flatten the topography, but for now I'll just kind of raise it up a bit. Great. So I have a sketch now, and I can assign it a function. So that's kind of what I zoomed through at the beginning. It's this process of creating sketches, creating masses, assigning functions to get those metrics. In this case, I'm going to assign a parking function, and you get a sense right away of, okay, it's automated in terms of stall placement. I can start fine-tuning parameters around there. So let's make our drive aisles all consistent. And let's make, say, a 9-foot stall width. And let's not have angled stalls. And just like that, you've got a 120 stall lot ready to go. Now, we said this is going to be a podium, so let's make this multi-story. So I'm going to extrude it with my push-pull tool, again, similar to SketchUp if you've used that. I'm going to select my mass here, and I'm going to split it into floors. Now, this is the part that's not done yet. So per floor, if I go in here, you'll actually see the parking. It's not showing on the outside, so we're getting there. But you can see here 480 stalls. Again, I have parking on every floor here. So as I add and remove stalls, that is going to live update. And so really easy to create my parking podium here. Now, like I said, you're likely not going to want to use up 2 entire floors of prime street facing real estate for parking. So let's go ahead and split that into some commercial. So I can come in here. Let's do, yeah, like 90 feet and come across and assign that as commercial. And now I've got parking on the back, commercial on the front for my street facing side. I'm starting to get my metrics here in terms of square footage of commercial. And okay, question coming in. So where do you specify floor height? Good question. So when I have this mass selected that's been split into floors, I can, at that point on mass, do floor to floor and specify count. So if I say both of these should be 20 feet, it's going to apply to both, but you can do it individually as well. So maybe I want 20 feet for my first floor because it's a higher retail floor, and then it's some regular office floor above that. So that one can just be, say, 12 feet. I simply select the floor, set the floor to floor height, and go on my way. To give you a sense, well, we can take it even further, I guess, from there. So let's make more of a tower. What you saw me just do, and you may have noticed here, is when I select a floor, each of these floors has a floor plan. So by default, they all have the same floor plan, but I can go in here and start changing that. So let's select that floor. Let's create a new floor plan. And let's, that line doesn't need to be there. And let's do maybe commercial is fine. Well, let's do commercial then in the back. And maybe then we've got some apartments on the front in that case. So now I've got a different floor plan set up. And actually, let's go in here and let's kind of step it back a bit. So, okay. So I've got some sort of a step back. Now I can apply this floor plan to as many floors as I want. So I know this is going far beyond your question, but just showing you here. I can assign those all floor plan 2 and I'm on my way. So they all act independently, but they also have a floor plan. So floor to floor is per floor, but then floor plan is whichever ones are assigned that floor plan. You need to accommodate clearances for the ramps. Yes, so good call. So parking, the parking that I showed you and the in progress part of it is that we've been focusing on surface lots as the V1. So yes, certainly it doesn't have ramps for multi-floor parking yet. That will be coming soon. Other things that we're currently working on are barrier-free stalls and bike stalls, and being able to specify roughly where you want placement of those are to go. Entrances for surface lots, and again, being able to specify where you want entrances. So that's all coming. We actually were just prior to this call, we were reviewing kind of where this is at. So parking is 3/4 of the way to version 1. The full version 1 will definitely have the ramps like you just mentioned. Okay, that's automated parking, and then blocks. Let's get into blocks. So Everything you've seen so far and what I've been showing you is this outside in approach of design, right? So you start with this mass and then you go in and you split it up. Well, we know that for certain typologies, like multifamily, that's not always the case. Oftentimes, your building shell is determined from inside out. So you have certain unit sizes and you're using those with a corridor to then have your overall building width. Um, and Nenad, I'll get to your question after blocks, if that's okay. So I'll come back to it, I promise. So blocks are our approach to the inside out design. And so what you can do in this case is you may have, let's go to a top view. You may have a file that you want to have all of your default blocks set up in. So we'll do that in this case, and then we'll publish them out. So you create your block. So maybe you have a standard 20 by 30 block. That might be some sort of one bedroom unit. So simple. Well, let's make it a little more complicated than that. Let's go some sort of a notch here. Okay, cool. So now I've got my overall shape and I want this to be, say, one bedroom and I want it to be residential. So now it's got a residential function and it's a one bedroom unit type. And let's do the same thing for, let's do 30 by 30, something like that for, say, a two bedroom. Cool. So I've got two blocks now. So what I can do, that's why I was on the assets tab here and it says blocks. So I don't have any blocks yet, but I picked the sketch. It's really as simple as right click, add to block library. I now have this block and let's do the same thing here. And it retains all the information. So it retains the area that's been assigned and the function that's been assigned. So residential and one bedroom. And now in this project, for now at least, I can drag in this block. And so for that inside out design, you can drag them in, snap them together. I mean, you can use, at that point, you can use a move copy tool and set them up that way. You can be rotating them around corners like you would in any other tool. But the beauty of these, again, is that they're publishable. So I can publish this block and this block. And now, if I go to a different project, so let's create a brand new project. Now those blocks are available to me. So as a company, as an organization, you can have your standard blocks all set up with the standard colors for all the functions and the standard functions all assigned to those blocks. So it kind of goes beyond just the shape. You can templatize the building functions, the area types, and the styling of all those things for your organization. And Faz, yes, this will be available afterwards. We will post a YouTube link to it, so that'll be available to you. So again, now I'm in here. I have my blocks. Where we're going with it and kind of the next step is so to function like this building that we were talking about, or I guess rather more like this building, and having it all be these different floors. You are going to be able to come in here. You can select these two things. You get this little button that shows up where I can right click and join them. And like I say, that's the in progress bit. So I guess that's something we'll have to fix here, but you now have these as a single sketch, which means that now you can extrude them, split them into floors, and you've got your building of that floor plan that you made from the inside out. So that's where we're going with blocks. I think there's further features you can probably imagine where you have blocks that, there's more generative processes that could be involved for creating those floor plans. That's all in our heads, and we have that stuff in mind going forward. Okay, so going back to a previous question now, just at the end here, if you have questions, I'm done what I wanted to go through. So if you have questions, go ahead and answer them or ask them now and I'll go answer them. Nenad asked, okay, so what about apartment layout planning in terms of fenestration on the facade? Right, so I mean, in the current setup, you would have to keep in mind where the fenestration is going to be. So there's no sense of placing fenestration in Arcol today. In the future, certainly, but for today, and at that feasibility level, you would have to have an idea while you're designing of, okay, I'm probably gonna have some big windows here and here on the corner. Um, you can go in as detailed as you want, technically. So say I want to actually add in some bedrooms here, I'd have to create a new unit type, or sorry, a new area type. But well, let's do that quickly. I'll show you what that might look like. So um, let's just call it bedroom. And bedroom is purple. Okay. So you can, there's nothing stopping you from going way in here and having just not just a 3 bedroom unit, but actually specifically, this is a bedroom, this is a bedroom, etc. But in terms of the fenestration that you asked about, you would have to have just in your mind while you're designing and discussing that, okay, we've got bedrooms here, there's gonna be a large window here and a large window here. Again, it's a general modeling tool, so there really also wouldn't be anything stopping you from going ahead and modeling on the face of these. So let's see if this is going to work for me here. Okay, it doesn't let's try something here. Okay, yeah, so there would be nothing stopping you from adding a window at the right angle. Sorry about that. Your rectangle tool, or if you have some odd shaped window, you can use a pen tool. Same goes for balconies. There's nothing stopping you from creating a balcony or a window and then using our other tools like the array tool to kind of push that across your building. And now you've got, at least from the exterior view, now you've got kind of balconies and windows and stuff. But these things aren't going to show up in those floor plan views. So that would be the limitation today for that. Does that answer your question generally? And any other questions, I guess. I'll give it one more kind of final minute. Like I say, that's the what I had today. Wrapping up here. So if you're interested in this, like Faz was saying, is this available? If you want to talk to us more about this and you want a proper demo for your team or yourself or whatever, you're interested in this, you can go to arcol.io. There's a giant book a demo button. Go there, it'll take you to this page. You can reach us at info@arcol.io. And if you want to reach me personally, it's just mike@arcol.io. If you want to reach our CEO, Paul, it's paul@arcol.io. Any of us will be happy to chat with you. Couple questions to wrap up here. So Ben, is beta still available? No. So we are now into being paid. There are trial periods available, but it's not like anybody can go sign up and use for free, like our preview release in August. So it's beyond that now. Yep. And then, okay, so Nenad asks, unfortunately, calculations would not be correct when you break down a unit into main parts, bedrooms, corridor, etc. So it would be, I think, depending what you're asking. Like in this case, I'm getting total bedroom count. So I guess it depends what kind of calculations you're looking for and how you break it up. Like rather than doing residential as a function, I could do 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom as a function. And then rather than those unit types as area types, I could do the rooms as area types. I'm pretty confident you could set it up in a way that you would get all the counts and calculations the way that you're hoping for. And then, sorry, one more question Faz asks, is there information on workflow to Revit? Right. Okay. Yeah, we can show you more in a demo if you want to set that up. The super quick answer to that is in terms of exporting out of Arcol, you can download as a .arcol file, and then we have a Revit add-in that lets you bring into Revit. It will bring it in as a Revit mass, and so there will still be some rework you'll have to do in Revit, but you'll get all the geometry into Revit as a mass. And then beyond that, you can, of course, export images. All the data can come out as CSV for Excel. You can download as an STL that lets you bring it into SketchUp as editable SketchUp geometry, or GLB is just like a generic 3D format. So you could bring it into Rhino or some other tool as a mesh. Okay, Nenad, when you broke a 3-bedroom apartment into parts, bedrooms, the system created new block types. Did I miss something? I'm not sure. I would say, Ned, why don't you and I chat on a follow-up call if you're interested? We can dig in super deep on this stuff, and I'll answer all your questions. So go ahead and reach out to me, Mike at arcol.io, and then we can go into all this block unit stuff. You can grill me on it. Okay, we're slightly over. Thanks for sticking around. Appreciate everyone coming. This will be available, like I said, we'll put it out as a YouTube video. So you have the link that you can go back, check on, and share. We'll be doing these every couple of weeks. So look out for the next one 2 weeks from now. And we'll see you on the next one. See ya.